Welcome to Voice Notes from Bex and Friends. Short, raw, unfiltered notes that will hopefully leave you nodding along thinking, oh my goodness, I needed to hear this today. Sometimes they're from me, sometimes from people I admire, and sometimes from you, the listener. You'll get a voice note whenever inspiration strikes, so make sure you subscribe to never miss a message. Hello and welcome to the very first episode of Voice Notes from Bex and Friends. I want to start off this whole thing by basically explaining the concept, what I'm hoping to achieve, where this all came from, and also give you a bit of kind of information as to how you can get involved as well, because I really want this to be a collaborative effort. I really want this to become more of a community than just me talking at people. So if you hang around to the end, I'll explain how you can get involved. Now, before we go any further, I have to let you know that this episode and all future episodes are going to be very raw. They're going to be unfiltered, unedited, and that is kind of the whole point. So I want to take you back to, I think it was like September 2020, when I'd closed down my content agency that I'd been running for nearly 10 years. And I started a little website, a little blog and a podcast called the Anti-Burnout Club. And I loved podcasting, right? I loved sitting down with my mic in front of my notes, in front of my computer and just talking and like sharing my journey, sharing the things that I'd learned along the way about burnout and not feeling enough and all of that kind of stuff. And that eventually turned into a much larger movement. It's still called the Anti-Burnout Club, but it is a platform. We've helped over 10,000 people. It's a social enterprise, yada, yada, yada. A lot of you who have been with me from the beginning kind of know that story. But what you might not know is that the podcast itself was such a huge sort of time and energy drain for me, right? So it would take me a couple of hours to put a script or like a load of notes together based on a topic. It would take me around an hour to record like a half-hour episode. And then it would take me twice as long as the episode to edit, right? Because I would listen to a minute of content, edit that bit, listen to it again. If it still needed editing, I would go back and edit that again. And what was a 30-minute podcast could take me an entire day to record, to edit, to put all the social media together. And then I was looking at getting in guests and, then you have to organize all of that. And it was like, I love doing this, but there were bigger things that needed my time. And so I kind of shelved it. And I used to get asked loads like, are you going to bring the podcast back? To the point I actually deleted the podcast off of the internet because I was like, please stop asking me because it's stressing me out. Like, I don't know if I can find the time to do it, even though I love it. Like, I really struggled to find the time. And the concept of this podcast has kind of stemmed from that and this desire for perfectionism, desire to have it perfect or not at all, right? And I am very, very good at perfectionism, like pretty perfect at perfectionism. Anyone that knows me will know that I have started 101 things and I've pretty much put a pin in all of them because it hasn't gone the way that I wanted it to go. So a really good example of this is I did a series on like TikTok and Instagram Reels called Beyond the Bubble Bath. And some of you are nodding like, yeah, we saw a few of those. Well, the concept was that I would go and try out all of these self-care things and I would go and film at a place for like half a day. And then it would take another half a day to get all of that footage together and edit it. And then like another few hours, like get it on all the stuff. And honestly, it was so time consuming. And then I'd get like 2,000 views and be like, oh, why did I spend so long on this? It was just so much, but it had to be perfect. And that's kind of what I want to talk about in this episode. And I'll come back to perfectionism. But another thing that kind of inspired the idea for this podcast is one of my oldest and bestest friends, Helen. Now, Helen and I have been friends since we were 11, since the beginning of secondary school. And we were thick as thieves, right? We had matching shoes. We still laugh when we tell these stories, but like we were naughty girls at school. We had matching shoes, and I basically lived around her parents' house, and we're still friends now. But life is very different now, right? We've both got young kids. She is super, super corporate girl, like has a really high power job. I absolutely love it and I adore her. I don't know how she does it all. And I have my stuff and my toddler, and we don't get the chance to catch up as much as we would like to. So what we do is we leave each other like 10 to 15 minute voice notes, right? Like, this is what's going on in my life, and this is what my child is doing, and how are you getting on? How's your child? Like, how's work? And I love this, right? Because it's these little moments of the day where perhaps I'm cooking or she's walking to work, where we don't have to fully commit to, let's find a time and a date where we can sit down and try and get a phone call in, and then, oh God, the toddler's sick, so now I can't do that. Like, it is literally this little back and forth, and sometimes it's every other day, sometimes it's a 2-week gap. And so I love the fact that a voice note, I know not everyone likes voice notes, but I love that it is just this raw, unfiltered kind of whatever comes out of my mouth is coming out of my mouth, right? Whatever comes out of my head is coming out my mouth. And I thought, we live in a world that is so edited, it's so filtered, it's so carefully curated. How nice would it be if I could just sit in front of my phone, like I do with my voice notes to Helen, and just leave you guys a message that hopefully makes you feel inspired or empowered or motivated, or just like, oh, I really needed to hear that today. And it's not just going to be me, because I've roped in some people that some of you already know to also leave some voice notes for you guys. So that's why it's called Voice Notes from Bex and Friends. It's not just going to be me rambling on. There are other people that are going to be talking about topics that perhaps I don't know enough about or wouldn't be able to give them justice, basically. And I want you guys to get involved too. So I've set up a way that you can leave me voice notes. You can ask me questions. You can leave a comment. You can say, Bex, what are you doing? Don't do this. This is awful. This is a terrible format. You can say, Bex, this is really cool. Like, why don't you cover this topic? Whatever. Like, I want you guys to be involved. You could send me a 10-minute voice note and it might get published on the podcast. I really want this to be a collaborative thing. And that's super, super important to me, because I think all of us are held back in some ways by perfectionism. And it is the biggest killer of progress in our lives. So if the thought of leaving a voice note that might get on a podcast scares you, good, do it, right? It doesn't have to be perfect to be worthy of saying, right? And I think that the biggest trap I've fallen into is that everything I do has to be perfect. And so this podcast, these voice notes will be unedited. You'll hear all of my breathlessness as I pace up and down with my phone, recording these on my phone. Like, I don't want it to be the carefully curated Instagram feed that we all get bombarded with, because that's what makes us feel like we have to be perfect. And I'm not just talking about like as a content creator or doing a podcast or doing like TikToks, whatever. I'm talking about life. Like, why isn't my house that perfect? Why isn't my daughter that perfectly behaved? Or, you know, like all of these things that we get shown that are so carefully curated to look perfect. And I'm so tired of it. And I feel like everyone else is too. So I'm hoping this is going to be the little break in the day where you're like, yeah, I needed to hear that today, and I can just get on with my life and not feel like I'm being sold to, or I'm being sold this like perfectionist lie or dream or whatever. So please do get involved. Like, I really want to hear what topics you want to hear. I want to know like what you think of the format. I want to know if you want to come on board. Like, I don't just want this to be a podcast of like celebrities selling books. Like, I really want this to be our space where we can talk about burnout or not feeling enough or the mental load or the pressures of society or happier topics. Happier topics are available. So yeah, that's it really. That is all I have to say in this voice note. I really hope that you're going to enjoy these and that they become a fun little part of your day. Now, as I say that, I have to be transparent with you that I'm not going to have like a very specific posting schedule. I do want at least one of these a week, but they are going to be posted kind of like as inspiration strikes. If there's something specific that's happened in the news or in society that feels important to talk about, or if something comes up in the shower, which generally tends to be where I get all my ideas, or just before bed. So the best way to make sure you don't miss a voice note is to subscribe on whatever platform you subscribe to podcasts. And that means that whenever a new voice note appears, whenever I record a new one, you will get a notification that says Bex and Friends have got a new voice note for you. And that is it. I'm going to end up in rambling territory. So I'm going to love and leave you there. And I'll see you again very soon. Take care. Thanks for listening to today's voice note. I'd love for you to send me one back. The link on how to voice note me is in the show notes. Take care.